Welcome to tonight's chapter meeting for the San Fernando Valley chapter of Climate Reality. I'm so glad to see so many of you here tonight, friendly faces, new and old. I know this was a rough week for a lot of us, right? There was, news both good and bad, but it certainly felt like more bad news than good news at times. I want to remind everyone that, these election results do not change our mission. All right. Our mission is to fight for every 10th of a degree of warming that we can stop, because every 10th of a degree that we stop makes for a better future. Okay. Yes, 1.5 degrees of warming is going to be a better future than 2 degrees, but 2 degrees is going to be a better future than 2.5, and 2.5 degrees is going to be a better future than 3. So there's no need to feel like, oh, the game is over. It's all hopeless. No, we're going to keep doing exactly what we have been doing, which is working in every avenue that's available to us to slow the rate of climate change and to make sure that our communities are adapting to climate change as it happens in order to minimize its effects on our communities. None of that is going to change. The paths available to us may shift, but we will keep watching and fighting for as long as it takes. Okay. So I don't want people to feel like this was the end of something. We were fortunate to get the big wins that we got during the Biden administration, and the IRA was a big win, and a lot of it has already been implemented and money has been sent out, and that's not going to get sucked back. Okay. So we made a lot of progress. It's going to look different for the next few years, for sure. But I'm going to remind you of what Rebecca Solnit said on election night. The fact that we cannot save everything does not mean that we cannot save anything. And everything we can save is worth saving. Okay, so I want us to hold on to that idea as we move forward through these next few years. And I'm glad to have all of you here because community matters. We all know it. This is where we find the people who understand how much we care because they care just like we do. So let's enjoy our community. Let's work together. No need to give up on anything. That said, we're going to kick off tonight with our land acknowledgement. And tonight's land acknowledgement is going to be read by one of our younger members, Jerry Yang. Jerry Yang is a high school student in the North Hollywood area. And he's extremely active in a number of fronts. Currently, he's serving as president of the LA City Youth Council, which provides budget recommendations to various LA City departments. Last year, he was a member of the LA Zoo Teen Council for Conservation, where he had the opportunity to delve deeper into the realm of environmental legislation and promoted environmental awareness within the youth community, and hosted the first LA Youth Conservation Symposium. So we're glad to have Jerry as a member of San Fernando Valley Climate Reality. Jerry, will you please give us a land acknowledgement tonight?
Yeah. So a land acknowledgement is a formal statement that recognizes and respects Indigenous peoples as stewards of this land and the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their traditional territories. It acknowledges the history that has brought us to reside on this land, the colonialism that is present in our current systems, and calls on us to be mindful of our own present participation in it. We acknowledge that we are on the traditional territory of the Tongva, the Quiche, the Tatavia, and the Chumash tribes.
Thank you, Jerry. And of course, those are the tribes that cover the San Fernando Valley. But if you are calling in from elsewhere tonight, please feel free to drop your local tribes into the chat so that we can honor them as well. At this point, I'm going to ask our outreach coordinator, Vivian Deutsch, to unmute herself and to give us just a brief overview on how you can join our chapter and Climate Reality at large if you are not already a member.
So, hi, everybody, and welcome. If this is your first meeting, a special welcome to you. So once you're in our meetings, you're on our mailing list for our chapter. But we are part of the Global Climate Reality Project that was founded by Al Gore, former Vice President Al Gore. And they span the globe, and they have chapters all over the place, and they have a lot of activity and information. And so, in addition to being on our mailing list, we want to invite everybody, if you haven't already done so, to go onto, I'm putting a link right now in the chat. That's the link that you click on, and then you fill out a form, and you make sure that you say that you're from the San Fernando Valley chapter. And after that, you get on the mailing list of Climate Reality Project, and you have visibility to all kinds of amazing stuff that's going on. And if you haven't already done it, you will find out also when there are trainings. I did it in 2017 here in LA. Trainings are free. They're amazing. They're just a library of lore and knowledge and inspiration. So you have visibility to trainings and all kinds of other good stuff. So if you haven't already joined as an official member of our chapter to Global Climate Reality, please do so, because I think you're going to find that it's really worth it.
Thank you, Vivian. So tonight's program, of course, that you're all here for is going to be covering the LA County Regional Sustainability Plan. And we're so fortunate to have Supervisor Lindsey Horvath here to talk to us about that plan. At this point, I'm going to toss it over to Kathy to give us an introduction, and we will let Lindsey take over.
Perfect, thank you. Supervisor Lindsey Horvath was sworn into the Los Angeles County Board of Supervisors on December 5th, 2022. 1 year later, she became the youngest ever chair. She's the first millennial and currently the only renter to serve on the all-woman board. Los Angeles County's 3rd district covers 446.08 square miles and stretches from the Ventura County line to Santa Monica and Hollywood to Sylmar and San Fernando. 9.6 million people live in Los Angeles County, and over 2 million of them reside in the 3rd district. However, Measure G has passed, and the supervisor might want to comment on that. So that was exciting news. Some fun facts. The population of Los Angeles County is larger than 40 of our states, and 1 in 4 Californians live in LA County. In addition to sustainability and the environment, Supervisor Horvath is also focused on social justice, community safety, homelessness and housing, transportation, and health and wellness. And that's just the top level of what she does. I don't know when she ever sleeps. In addition to being a county supervisor, she's on the board of the Clean Power Alliance, is the chair of the LA Homeless Services Authority Commission, and a member of the Metro Board. In the words of her environmental deputy, Erin Ordauer, who is on this call tonight, Supervisor Horvath is the hardest working person he has ever met, and I think we can probably all agree with that. And as the first millennial leader of LA County, tackling the climate crisis has been one of her top priorities. So we appreciate her time tonight and look forward to hearing updates on the county's sustainability goals, successes, and challenges. Thank you for being here, Supervisor Horvath.
Thank you so much for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, great. And thank you for welcoming me so warmly. Thank you, Sharon and Kathy, and to all of the members. Thank you for choosing to be here in the wake of really difficult news in this past week. You're still choosing to show up and do the work, and we're going to need it now more than ever. So I thank you for that, and I thank you for your partnership going forward, because we're really going to need each other. I really appreciate you acknowledging sort of the scope of what Los Angeles County is. I think that really contributes to how we can use our platform to lead with authority on climate, even in the face of great adversity. And for most of you in the San Fernando Valley, I am your LA County Supervisor. The 3rd district is roughly the west side, what is known as the west side, and the San Fernando Valley, and a little bit more than 2 million folks in my district, close to 10 million overall in the entire county. And so we have a lot of work that we are charged with. There are more than 30 departments 120,000 employees in Los Angeles County. So we have the ability to really make a big impact if we choose to. And thank you for also acknowledging Measure G. We have declared victory in Measure G, which will bring transformational change that is long overdue to LA County governance. The governance structure of the county hasn't changed since 1912. And so we will begin a process of reforming county government that will take a number of years, but it's because we want your input and engagement. And I'll get to that in just a little bit. But as we all know, our climate crisis is not a distant threat. It's happening right now. It's one of the defining challenges of our time, and especially with the change in federal administration, knowing what we will be up against or what we can anticipate being up against in at least the next 4 years. It's important more now than ever to be bold in addressing this crisis. And here in Los Angeles County, we are not sitting back and waiting. We are taking bold, decisive action to confront this crisis head on. Our county has 2 overarching strategies towards addressing the climate crisis: our county sustainability plan and the 2045 climate action plan. I'm sure you are familiar with these and happy to talk in more detail about them. But within the county, we are working to adapt to a changing climate. And I can provide a couple of examples that I know we're going to get into a little bit more. Water, of course, is a fundamental resource for life, but due to climate change, we're now experiencing both longer droughts and more intense storms. To adapt from this, I championed the approval of the Los Angeles County Water Plan this past year, and we've also worked to strengthen Measure W, also known as the Safe Clean Water Program, which is providing $280 million in grants for projects like stormwater capture to ensure that all our communities have access to clean water. To also bring the LA County Water Plan to life, we convened a regional summit in Los Angeles County. You may know that the city of Los Angeles is one of 88 cities in Los Angeles County. There's also an unincorporated area, and recognizing this, we also have more than 200 water agencies to contend with in terms of how we use this most precious resource. And so we convened water leaders throughout the region, all of our stakeholders, and invited everyone to the table to talk about how we implement best practices across the region, how we work together to help some of our smaller water providers have the support that they need to do what needs to be done, and to make sure that our bigger water providers are leading the way in best practices and really investing in the kind of change that we need to ensure that the water plan comes to life and that everyone is actively a part of it. So I'm really excited about the challenge of water and what is possible. And I'm glad to see that even in this most challenging time for budget and otherwise, the county has continued to prioritize this work. Another place we've prioritized the work is extreme heat. It's obviously one of the deadliest impacts of climate change that residents are facing right now. My team is currently developing protections for tenants by requiring a maximum indoor temperature threshold. And, you know, as a renter, this is something that's especially important to me. I think having the perspective of renters in the conversation while we're talking about what sustainable living, affordable living looks like is critical. And while we have, you know, implemented measures to protect us from extreme cold, we now facing the challenge of extreme heat not only need to look at our housing, but also our school settings and our community environments. And Supervisor Solis has been a strong partner in this work with us. And we really thank her for her leadership and partnership, because we also know that many of the communities that are most challenged by extreme heat are the ones that have the fewest resources to do something about it. And so by teaming up and working regionally, we can invest in best practices and changes that will protect even and especially our most vulnerable residents in Los Angeles County. Another critical component to addressing the extreme heat crisis is expanding our tree canopy. Trees are a critical part of our infrastructure, and our plan is actionable, a long-term strategy to expand the benefits for all residents. We have created a program in partnership, working in partnership with Supervisor Mitchell in the 2nd District on expanding our tree canopy. And I'm really excited about this work as well, especially as we're thinking about large scale events that are heading our way, like the Olympics. We saw what Paris was able to do in terms of setting climate goals as part of the work that they and investments that they made to welcome the world into their backyard. We can be doing the same with our climate infrastructure, and especially by investing in our tree canopy. As we've seen this past week with the devastating mountain fire in Ventura County, the recent bridge fire, climate change has also increased our vulnerability to wildfires. Throughout my first year in office, my team has hosted more than a dozen community safety fairs. We're continuously investing in our county fire resources. Thank you for helping us to pass Measure E, which will continue to invest in our fire district and bring much needed resources to the critical life-saving work that they do. I know that the wildfire threat is something that keeps a lot of my district up at night. In fact, a council member, I often share, a council member in Agoura Hills shared with me not too long after I was sworn into the office that he didn't know. He wanted to advise me to make sure I knew that this district that I represent is the most disaster prone of any district in any county in the entire country. I said, wow, thanks for setting the bar so low for me there. But I do know that this is a challenge that we're taking seriously in our office, that is a real threat for families that we care about and that we're working to protect. And climate continues to make these threats. And so we have to tackle these challenges head on. We're also developing the county's first ever zero emission vehicle master plan as we continue to look at how we reduce carbon emissions, looking at single riders in cars on our freeways and highways and state highways. We have to do better when it comes to how we are moving people around this region. And investing in a zero emission vehicle plan is critical to achieving our goals. Our goal is to have 100% of our county fleet be zero emission by 2035. This will happen by electrifying our county fleet and increasing our charging infrastructure. And that's not only for to be a county resource for county employees and county, but once we invest in this infrastructure, that's something that is a community benefit and an investment for all of our communities. And so we are continuing to look at how we can increase the availability and affordability of zero emission vehicles and infrastructure. Lastly, our district is home to some of our most iconic coastline, and sea level rise and intense winter storms have impacted our shoreline and significantly threaten our beaches. And so together with the Department of Beaches and Harbors, we've launched a coastal resiliency initiative. We are working hard. We not only have developed plans that really embrace natural interventions and, broad sweeping, bold vision for what we need to do to protect our coastlines. And we've invested in some pilot projects that we hope we can expand those lessons learned along our coastline throughout Los Angeles County. But we also know that these plans, like all good plans, require funding. And so we, especially in what we expect to be a more challenged time now as a result of this election, we know that public-private partnerships are going to be a critical component to investing in our infrastructure and realizing our goals. I cannot stress enough how important it is that we work together in addressing climate change. And as we look forward, we want to explore more ways in partnership with you to advance our agenda, to make sure that we are meeting the goals that you expect of us to be meeting or exceeding as your county leadership. And, to really be also not only thought partners, but also hold us accountable to the things that we have set forth. We have, invested in a variety of policies and structures that we'll make sure we continue to invest in this work. The sustainability plan, of course, we've mentioned, but we've also created a climate budget and started to begin to invest in what a build out of a climate budget looks like. And as chair of the board, I had the privilege of going to New York this year when we had to do all of our financial and credit rating work for the county, which is essential for a lot of reasons. And I was proud to see that actually when we were asked by one of the credit rating agencies what we were doing about climate resiliency, our CEO proudly said, I'm going to say 2 words, Supervisor Horvath. And she, sort of turned the floor over to, so I was able to talk about all of this important work. And so when people think about, our sustainability and our climate challenges sort of as, a special interest issue or something that can be passed off, I'm glad to report that, when we're thinking about our financial resiliency as a county organization, as a government, we are being challenged to invest in this work. And we proudly had already brought forward a motion to do exactly that. And we are continuing to invest in this work because we know it has to be done. It's essential to our quality of life, and it's what's going to protect us going forward. So I really appreciate you welcoming me here. I know you're going to have a lot of questions, so I'm going to pause there for now, but just thank you for the incredible and great work that you all are doing and the ways that we will work together in the future. Thank you very much.
And Supervisor Horvath, I just want to thank you for that, because when we are feeling flooded with bad news, it's easy to forget how much good work is being done all around us right now.
Yeah.
And just getting a quick rundown of, what you see going on in the county that we might not be seeing day to day is really encouraging and helpful. We do have lots of questions. We're going to kick things off with a few that we've already prepared, and then some of our members had already submitted questions that they'd like to ask you, so we're going to pass it around and just grill you, okay?
Okay, let's see how we do.
All right, how much can we get through? So you started off by alluding to, the county sustainability plan, and there's the climate action plan. And I've read about, a climate vulnerability assessment, and there's also an extreme heat action plan that's separate from the climate action plan. So I think the first question I have is, how do all of these departments work together to make sure that the goals are all effective? I mean, obviously there's some overlap. How do you make sure that, progress is being made on all the right fronts and nothing's falling through the cracks?
It's a great question. It's one of the reasons I brought forward Measure G, to make sure that we have a checks and balances in our system that I think is really necessary. But we also, in our office, have made sure that our directives are clear, that we are communicating with the directors of each of our departments about what our expectations are, and that this isn't just something that we're putting on paper, but it's most important that we put it into action. And so our county's sustainability plan really serves as the overarching aspirational framework that integrates all of our goals and priorities for our various departmental plans. So it's really our holistic approach to addressing climate change by bringing together all of our relevant strategies. As you indicated, it's very intersectional work. We have to bring our departments together. We know that we tie climate to housing, to workforce development, to public health, and so much more. And this equity-focused framing is really what sets us apart in Los Angeles County, and what sets our plan apart from other plans in terms of how we're really putting it into action and how we are measuring impact. Our Chief Sustainability Office conducts an annual assessment to evaluate our progress in terms of how we're implementing the plan. It's also a framework for how our county will achieve carbon neutrality by 2045. The analysis of the climate action plan that you referenced will inform how we also refresh our goals within the climate action plan. And so we really see this as a living document. This isn't just something that, sort of will sit on a shelf and collect dust, nor will it stay stagnant. But as we have to be responsive to the ever-changing needs of our climate and our communities, we really see this as, a way that we can be adaptive and responsive. And we're also in the county performing a greenhouse gas inventory for the first time ever in more than a decade. So, all of this work risks being siloed without the leadership of our chief sustainability office. That office really helps to bring everyone together and have a leading voice. And then with oversight from the board, with our benchmarks of accountability written into the motions that we bring forward, with timelines, with deadlines. And when we bring these things forward, we also ask for, what is your proposed budget? And that's something to look for. Another component of Measure G that will be implemented right away. Some things will take some time, but one thing that happens right away is more budget transparency. We will have department directors making presentations on their respective budgets through public hearings, which has never before happened in Los Angeles County ever. So this spring, please participate with us and make sure that you're hearing each department identify the priority issues that you want to see addressed and make sure they have funding in their budgets. And I know that I'll be doing that too.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Horvath. I think you might have touched on some of the second question, but what is the process for revisions of the county sustainability plan, and how can we as stakeholders contribute to revisions and make comments?
So each plan is sort of its own path forward, and yet we know that, as I just explained, bringing all of these efforts together is critical to implementation and making sure that we are working together. So there are some similarities, but each plan will be updated. Several of these sector-specific plans were first identified through the process of the overall R County sustainability plan, including the LA County water plan. So some of these plans are subsets of that, and they're developed through robust stakeholder engagement. That's how they were created and continue to be updated. They incorporate the latest scientific information, and we will be holding public meetings that you can participate in on these respective plans. And our Chief Sustainability Office is a good place to look for the timelines for each of those plans.
Okay, great. So one other thing that you mentioned was the climate budget initiative. So can you tell me a little bit more about exactly how that's going to work, and what is it going to, provide us in terms of accountability, or is it, just a roadmap for accomplishing some of the sustainability plan goals?
Thank you. And I really have to shout out Aaron. I know he's on here somewhere. This is work that he has helped to champion in other jurisdictions. And I think, our office leading on making sure that this is a priority. Oftentimes we have seen that a lot of our, especially the seemingly ambitious climate goals, the ones that we deem as most necessary, but, very complicated and difficult work, get set aside when we have, things that feel more urgent. But nothing is more urgent than protecting our environment and making sure we have a safe and healthy place to live. And so in December 2023, we introduced a motion that would establish a climate budget. The county's big plans require investment. One of the things that I said a lot while I was campaigning to get into this seat was, it was great that we had our county's sustainability plan, but without a corresponding funding plan, it really didn't mean as much as it could. It was award winning in terms of the goals that it set forth, but we have to invest in actually making that work come to life. And so we're currently preparing a municipal greenhouse gas inventory to track progress towards emission reductions, determine our county's biggest emitters. Once we've refreshed the data next year on emissions by sector, it will help our county decide where to prioritize our decarb efforts for our own operations. And along with budget reforms that LA County voters directed with the passage of Measure G, we'll have transparent reporting and public hearings on our total investment in climate change. So this really provides not only direct investment, but a framework for future investment as we prioritize the goals that we want to take action on. We have short, medium, and long-term goals that have been identified through these plans. So those shorter-term goals, we can find investment in more directly, and some of the more ambitious plans we want to identify, especially private partners who want to invest in this work to get in early. And so we can do both now that we've identified how we're looking at funding, bringing all of these plans to life.
Okay, how does the county interact with the cities to support the needs of each municipality?
That's a great question. You know, I come from a small city, one of the smallest in Los Angeles County, and yet it had very ambitious goals as it related to the environment. And so, you know, as the county is looking at how we fully implement the vision that we have, we need to make sure that those city leaders and community leaders who know their communities best really have a seat at the table and working with us to bring these plans to life. So we're in continuous communication with our partner cities to stay up to date on their initiatives and to ensure regional alignment as much as possible. I previously served as the president of the California Contract Cities Association, which is all of the cities that contract for services with Los Angeles County. So I have a direct and personal relationship with those community leaders, even beyond my district. And so that kind of personal connection makes a difference, making sure that people know that they have, you know, a place that they can come to share their ideas, and also, to be honest, some of their frustrations. You know, we heard from cities the challenges that they were facing in terms of Measure W implementation, which led to some of the improvements to the measure that we brought forward in a subsequent motion after we took office. You know, that was really based on feedback not only from cities, from some school districts and other groups that were saying, you know, some of what they wanted to do, they just didn't have the resources, especially in terms of how to administer and how to really apply for that funding. And so we were working in partnership with them, not only are able to bring our plans to life, but also to make improvements. We're also working with multiple cities across the county on a unified approach to decarbonize our buildings and to design policies like the tenant protections that I mentioned regarding heat through our health code. So cities can also easily adopt these codes into their own. And in this coming December, we're excited to host our Chief Sustainability Office's first City Summit, where we'll be planning and working together with elected officials from at our city level, but county-wide. So we're going to convene everyone, bring them together, and talk about, you know, not only what our aspirations and expectations are, but what their needs are, and how we can align best practices and work together.
Oh, that sounds really productive.
Yeah.
So the thing that I want to say now is that everyone on this call is here because they don't view climate change as, you know, a problem. It's the problem. It's a
Yes.
climate emergency, right? And this feels incredibly urgent to us.
Yes.
It doesn't always feel like our governments sense the same urgency that we feel, okay? And it's wonderful to hear about things like tenant protections, because obviously, you know, that is important. We have to protect our vulnerable communities, but also that's a reaction, right? That's adaptation to climate. And what we need is to not lose sight of mitigation, right? Of slowing the pace of climate change, of doing the hard work of not just saying, well, we'll get used to it and we'll adjust, but, you know, to actually try to slow this process that is happening. So I'd like to know your thoughts on balancing sort of reactive and proactive strategies on adaptation versus mitigation, and how does the county plan to, you know, deal with population growth and limited resources and budget constraints, but actually respond urgently to what is a real crisis?
Yes. I share your sense of urgency, which is why, you know, during my year as chair, our commitment to our sustainability goals has been one of my top 3 areas of focus. And, you know, despite being in a challenged budget year, as we are facing new budget challenges, specifically at the county level, and now with this new election, you know, we will see I suspect significantly less investment and partnership in the goals that we've been pursuing. So this is something that I take pretty seriously. I think you're absolutely right. There are people who sort of see this as one of many issues, but for those of us who understand that if we're not investing now, both in adaptation and mitigation strategies, we're missing the moment entirely. And as I mentioned earlier, my district is the most disaster prone, but FEMA has designated LA County as a whole as the most disaster prone. The multiple natural hazards that we are at risk of in the United States, many or most of them happen here in Los Angeles County. So we're not only adapting to a new normal of extreme weather, longer droughts, followed by more intense storms, floods, and landslides, the same areas that are at risk of fires. Now we have seen both years that I have been on the board, so thus far, at the top of the year, the challenges that are posed by extreme rain and the related impacts to our neighborhoods. So we intend to continue our investment in this work. When we have conversations about budget priorities, this will remain at the top for me because I know this is something we can't lose sight of, and especially given the size and scope of Los Angeles County and the potential we have for impact, we cannot miss this moment. Not only because of the global events that will be coming to our backyard and the opportunities that they will pose for us to show the rest of the world our commitment, but also because our residents here, who are committed to our environment each and every day, deserve to know that we're prioritizing this work. And so there's a lot that we're doing. And I will also be honest in saying, one of the critical challenges will be investment on some of the larger scale projects. We put together a pretty competitive and compelling proposal for our Living Shoreline Coastal Erosion Plan. And we got excellent feedback. While we didn't win the grant funding that we sought this time around, we were encouraged to apply again because of not only what it will do, but just that it is audacious and ambitious and inspiring to other jurisdictions to take a look at this kind of work, and to see LA County embark on a project of that size and scale. People were excited to see that we were thinking at that level. And I've only been here for a little less than 2 years, but we've certainly heard from a lot of our organizational partners that we have really stepped in a way where we're pushing the envelope even more than it's ever been pushed in Los Angeles County. And that will continue to be my goal, because we cannot rest, and especially as we will continue to be challenged at the federal level.
And I do want to say that, personally, it's a comfort to me to have your voice on the board as my representative, because I know that you understand, what we're worried about here. And I just want to encourage you to, keep fighting, keep pushing. Don't ever back off, because this is just not the time for that.
Yes, you're absolutely right. And, and I think as much as it's essential for the outcomes of the work, I think it's going to be, just to be a little bit personal, I think it's also going to be important for our spirits and for our mental health too, to know that we have a community of support that we can turn to when we come up against these challenges, when we hear, the threats, of policy change that are coming about what, the next administration could mean. It is devastating to think about the decades of work that has been done to move us forward, and what is at risk in potentially a very short period of time if we don't fight back. And so we're going to need each other more than ever. And I just cannot thank you enough for the community that you have created here, the ways that you're training people, empowering and educating people, and most importantly, activating people to hold their governments accountable. And while I'm sure we're all going to want to hold our federal government accountable, I want you to hold me accountable too, because LA County has a big responsibility. And so I thank you for that.
Oh, don't worry, we will.
Thank you.
We have your back, but we're also watching. All right. I know that several of our members had questions that they wanted to ask you directly, so
Okay.
I'm going to kind of toss the ball to different people right now. So Andy, if you will unmute, Andy is particularly concerned about water issues.
Okay.
He wants to know about things like stormwater capture.
Okay.
Thank you, Supervisor Horvath, and congratulations on your award from LA Waterkeeper. So I wanted to
Thank
start with that.
Oh, thank you.
My question, sorry, it's two parts. So do you want me to break up the questions or just say them both?
You can say them. That's fine.
Okay, I just wanted to ask. What can we do to improve stormwater capture, implement nature-based solutions, and create sustainable water infrastructure? And how do we incorporate water goals into both the sustainability plans and our overall water policy?
Great questions. And that you are thinking about this makes my heart so very happy. Thank you. My very first action after becoming chair of the board was passing LA County's water plan in partnership with our Department of Public Works. So this water plan aligned our water stakeholders on shared goals on how to sustainably and resiliently manage our county's water resources. Obviously, we know this is no small task. As I mentioned, there are more than 200 independent water districts and agencies. So we are working on aligning their shared vision. And part of that shared vision is achieving 80% local water supply in LA County by 2045. Our three major strategies are stormwater capture, water recycling, and conservation. And so we're working to align our goals in that way. We have in our various plans identified exactly what some of the nature-based solutions and best practices are and can be. And so one of the things that you can do to improve our work is help us know where you're getting stuck. You know, Measure W was intended to provide resources to local community partners. So that way, you know, the resource part isn't an issue because funding is usually one of the biggest hurdles you have to cover. So if you are getting stuck in being able to access those resources, let us know what it is so we can, you know, get out of our own way and help you succeed in implementing those plans. We're also looking at, you know, best practices. I can't say enough good things about our Las Virgenes Water District and, you know, their ambitious goals and their clean water program as well. And so we're really looking to examples in the county that we can expand and scale. So if there are places where you think good ideas are happening that we should be taking a look at more, I think making sure we're paying attention to that is important. But I suspect the greater challenge is going to be how do we really motivate people when they're challenged by either by policy or by resource, you know, and stretching a little bit further to do a little bit more. And so I think by working together, we'll be able to make sure that the policies that we're bringing forward actually get put into action, and that other, you know, whether it's our cities or other organizations, councils of government, which convene regional groups together of local governments, those are places where, you know, a lot of times it's just, it can feel like a lot of bureaucracy, but for some cities, that's the way they're able to get to a scale where they have the resource to actually implement change. So, so we have to do everything that we can to get out of our own way, and we also have to use our existing structures to make sure that we can scale our solutions to make a meaningful impact.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Next, I'm going to toss it over to my predecessor as chair, Diana, who has a question about the LA River, and more specifically, the Sepulveda Basin.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Oh, good. Lots to talk about there. Thank
I
you.
was just there this morning, actually. So,
Oh, excellent.
Yes,
Excellent.
yeah.
Well, our chapter, and there are other organizations on this call who have been very involved in providing input for the vision plan and are trying really hard to keep it in a more natural state as it evolves and develops. Wondering, you know, the city did the vision plan, but, you know, we're wondering if the county is supporting the Sepulveda Basin Vision Plan with county resources. How are you guys getting involved? And if you are, in what ways?
Yeah, so I know that the Sepulveda Basin Plan, as you mentioned, is specifically a city-led initiative, but obviously we are a critical partner to all of our city leaders. I know that there have been, sort of larger scale events where the city has, talked about its ambitious goals, and even our state leaders have said, we know that there's going to be a need for state resources to invest in bringing this plan to life. I think the Sepulveda Basin Vision Plan is also linked to the LA River Master Plan. And so that's something that also that the county is intimately familiar with. I can talk a little bit more about that if you'd like, but absolutely, we will look at, how the county can best invest in these resources. I have a variety of projects, capital projects in my district in the San Fernando Valley, whether it's Rory Shaw, whether it's some of the spreading grounds. And so not only making sure that we're making investments in, ongoing maintenance for the projects that exist, but also investing in, really bringing all of these changes to life. There's a lot of interplay between city and county, and when projects come to fruition, sometimes they get handed off to the city to then maintain, and depending on how the partnership and agreements are aligned. So you can absolutely count on the county being at the table as the Sepulveda Basin Plan is moving forward.
Great. And I am going to take you up on the offer to explain a little bit more about where we are in the implementation of the LA River Master Plan. I remember, we gave comment on that years ago. So
Yeah.
does, from our perspective, well, just tell us what's going on. We're not seeing the action.
Yes. Well, so tell me a little bit, if you would, about your experience with the LA River Master Plan and your commenting, because I know I've heard from lots of different folks about, sort of what their hopes and aspirations had been, and for some, they didn't quite match up with what was ultimately approved.
At the time, our primary interest was to see natural solutions.
Sure.
The Army Corps has a program, Engineering with Nature, and that's really what we wanted to see, is that rather than adding more concrete, we would be really smart about as Sharon mentioned, ways to do this work and benefit, having some benefits redound in the space of climate. So we were just very simple in our hopes and wishes, which is let's stay nature-based on this. Let's look for nature-based solutions.
Yeah, so I appreciate you acknowledging that. I heard that along the way, that there was perhaps some unmet expectation around what is possible with the LA River Master Plan. Obviously, we know it's a 25-year vision to transform our river into a multi-benefit resource for communities, not only focused on water, but our environment, especially the people in the communities it will serve. Water is our lifeblood, and I just really believe that it is, there's such an interesting vision of how we can connect all of our communities, bring our region together, both through infrastructure, through art, through so much that can be created along the river if we do it correctly. And I know our Department of Public Works provided their annual report back to the board on the implementation in June. We have made progress on 9 goals of the plan, and we can share a little bit more in detail about what they did report. The LA River Headwaters Pavilion Project is an ongoing project in our district that we're particularly excited about, because we know that the more we can create convening spaces that also welcome community events and arts and celebration, we can really take advantage of the river as that lifeblood and connector through our region. I think one of the things that apparently I like to take on small projects, but one of the things that I talked about with some of my senior staff when I first came in was, how do we create a JPA for the river, so that way we have a decision-making body that's unified and a clearer place of policy-making authority. So we can really, speak with a unified voice and vision about how we want to see our river transformed and invested in. And so that's something I'm hopeful about too. I know it's sort of a little bit wonky and government nerdy, but I do think that in order for us to continue to chart this progress, it's not only about holding our departments accountable, but it's also bringing our communities in to the engagement and accountability as well. Because if we have competing interests along the river based on different communities, we're going to get stuck real fast. And so, so I think that's something that we're also looking at too.
Great. Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so next I'm going to throw it to Terry. Terry is the leader of the SoCal Stop Artificial Turf Task Force, and she has a
Okay.
question about artificial turf.
Yes.
Well, thank you. So, as you know, we're working to get a ban on artificial turf installations in Los Angeles, and we are very integral in working with Bob Bloomingfield's office and then passing the council file. And as you know, artificial turf is plastic made with fossil fuel-based petrochemicals. It contains toxic chemicals like PFAS, microplastic. It pollutes our air, water, and soil. It gets too hot. It prevents recharge in our aquifer, and it hurts biodiversity. It's pretty much should not exist. So due to these many negative impacts, and in fact, there are alternative nature-based solutions, would you support or look into a countywide artificial turf ban?
We can absolutely look at that. I think we have to when we're looking at all of the concerns that you've identified. I know that my colleague Supervisor Hahn has really been a leader on PFAS and making sure that we are focused on its impact and that we are doing all that we can to address it. Not only do we have to obviously conserve water by reducing the amount of non-functional water intensive grass, we also have to be careful about artificial turf if the products do contain it. And so we know also with microplastics, all of that getting into our water system is a growing concern. So we have policy on the books to monitor for that. And we're also working along our chief sustainability office to examine the possibility of prohibiting the sale and distribution of products with PFAS as a whole. What you are asking us to explore is completely in line with the mission of those policies. And I think it should absolutely be on the table.
Thank you.
Cindy Cotter, are you here? You are next. Cindy is our local expert on food issues and food policy. She works with the LA Food Council, and she has a question about urban agriculture.
Wonderful. Hi, Cindy.
Hi. Small farms can't produce or package the amount of food required for large buyers, which makes it difficult for schools or hospitals to use local food. Food hubs help build a climate resilient food system by aggregating and marketing local products. Does the county have any plans to create or support in some way a food hub?
Absolutely. This is something that I've personally been working on with Supervisor Hahn. As I came into the work of the county, I knew that the county saw the value in having food hubs. I think we learned a lot, especially through our experience of COVID and having access to food, it became an even more vital service than it typically is in the work of the county. So we've outlined not only the community benefits that you might imagine from food hubs, but also the climate resiliency benefits with our 2023 Food Equity Action Plan. And this year we've provided nearly $10 million in community grants to alleviate food insecurity, to build a more resilient food system through our Food Equity Fund. We also collaborated with philanthropic partners to launch a new public-private initiative, the LA County Office of Food Equity. And I cannot thank enough the Annenberg Foundation for the work that they have done to invest and make sure that we have the right kind of infrastructure. It has been a huge win. Our philanthropic partners have, been true accountability partners and helping us see this through and moving it forward. And as we've said, here's a gap that we either literally need funded or we need to bridge. They've helped us think creatively and bring resources to the table. The office, this office in particular, is going to lead on cross-cutting food system issues to develop strategies to further bolster our local food economy. So I'm really excited about what all of that what all of that can mean for Los Angeles County.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
We have one more pre-submitted question, but I also want to encourage our audience members that if they have a question, please just type it into the chat and we'll get to as many as we can in our last 10 minutes here.
Okay.
But Pete has a particular interest in building decarbonization, so he wanted to ask more about that. Pete, go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead.
Thanks so much, Sharon. Thanks so much, Supervisor Horvath, for being here tonight and for everything you do. I got to meet you in Long Beach when at a little event hosted by Stacy Mungo a year or so ago.
Oh my goodness! Yes, it was
yeah.
in that hotel, in that side room. I remember.
Yeah, what's its place? Yeah. Anyway, but thanks for everything you do, and it was heartwarming to me to hear you mention the prominence of buildings as a piece of our climate challenge and solution space. I dedicate my time to buildings, and I focus especially on existing buildings. We've got so much embedded inertia in those. And every time we decarbonize an existing building, it's a huge environmental justice win also. For both low-income households and renters, which you've already lifted up, and thank you. So, how can LA County help lead among, there's over 140 jurisdictions nationwide that are working on this, but most of the action has been new construction. How can we get to those existing buildings?
Yes, it's a great question. It's something, it almost feels like you're reading our minds, because I know Aaron and I have been working on this pretty recently, not only in terms of what does the policy, what is our next step in terms of progressing our policy, but also how do we invest in it. And I know we're creating a fund that will invest countywide at countywide solutions. And this is chief among the challenges that we have to tackle for all the reasons that you've outlined. In fact, a prior employee in Los Angeles County who's now moved to the city identified for me as we were talking about climate goals and if I had the good fortune of coming into this role, where I should start with implementing our county plan. And he really identified this area as, significantly challenged, not because it's not an obvious place for us to go, because I think we can make significant impact there. So for that reason, it's obvious. But I think, we have to think about also job creation, job transitions. How do we make sure that that the work that would be done in building decarbonization is good work, and that we're not putting people out of work while we are making these changes. And so, I think these are questions that are top of mind for us. Some of our labor partners have concerns for some of those reasons, and we want to bring them along in this work, which I believe we will. We just have to make sure that as we're thinking about this, not only for building decarb, but also, transitioning away from our oil wells and so many other things. When we talk about just transition for jobs, we often focus on the transition part, but not always on the just part. And so that's something I really take to heart. All of that being said, ISD, our internal services department in the county, received a $328 million grant from the California Energy Commission to implement our equitable building decarbonization efficiency program. So we are significantly going to see investment in this work countywide. That program will directly install more than 13,000 building retrofits. This program is going to help eligible income qualified residential customers electrify their homes at no cost. This is obviously, as you identified, going to help reduce GHG emissions. It's going to advance energy equity. We're also looking at our partners like Clean Power Alliance, where I serve as vice chair, at the customer facing programs that we are implementing to try and help and, make those sustainable investments with our customers in decarbonizing their households. So we're excited about this work. We know that we know that it's going to be a little bit more complex than some of the others, but it's critical to getting us to where we need to go and the goals that we've outlined for ourselves. And so if we're serious about the goals that we've identified, we have to do this work. It's not optional. And so we just have to put ourselves on that path and continue to commit to it, not only in word, but also with dollars invested. And so we've got a good start, and there's a lot more that we're going to have to do to realize it.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to finish this off with just a couple questions from the chat. From Alvin Waters, he says, he's a big advocate for zero emission vehicles, EVs, works in the industry. And he says, we know our municipal utilities like SCE can't move fast enough in upgrading the grid infrastructure. Okay, so what is the county's strategy around this? Are you considering partnering with other organizations that are pushing for resilient, smart, interconnected communities, or other ways to get distributed generation for EV charging around the county?
Yes. We are looking at how we can build out our infrastructure with partners, like I mentioned, Clean Power Alliance, which has now grown to be the largest community choice aggregate in the country. We are the largest clean energy provider in the country and now as well. And so we have twice now been recognized by the federal government for that leadership work. And it's in part because we're not only, pushing a transition to a cleaner energy, but we're also investing in infrastructure. And because of the scale at which we are serving now with both Los Angeles and Ventura counties, we're able to really help move markets and influence policies just based on the scale of what we're able to do. So we are looking to identify partners, looking at microgrid solutions, not only for the reasons that you've identified to electrify vehicles and what have you, but also as safety solutions. We look at an area like Topanga Canyon in my district, and the fire safety risks that they face, looking to microgrid solutions when we're, addressing some of the impacts both for fire and staying connected during the time of emergency. Some of those kinds of solutions are going to be critical. So we are always looking to partners at how we can build out and places where we can pilot solutions before we scale.
Oh, that's good. Like to hear about more EV charging for sure. Don't want that to be the limiting factor.
Yes.
All right. I know you have to jump really quickly. So the last question I've got, just, going to throw you an easy one. So we have these goals that say we're going to be carbon neutral by 2045. We're going to have all our own water by 2045. Are we going to make it? Are we on track?
We are on track. We're on track, and I'm going to push to get things done earlier. I think we have to be ambitious. We have to take advantage of every opportunity. I appreciate that we've given ourselves deadlines, but we also we have no time to waste. And we face that. I know you phrased it in terms of a couple of issues. One of the things that we looked at Metro is electrification, of our buses, and we were sort of presented with this challenge of, are we going to be able to, all of the things that you hear, right? It's expensive, there's not as many manufactured, all the things. And, what at the size and scale of an agency that we are in the transportation space, we can push for there to be more created. And so we really have to think about that. Not only are we in a position to just approve based on dollars and cents, but we have to use those dollars and cents to influence what is happening. So, that's really how I'm thinking about it. It's not just sort of being reactive to what is presented to us in terms of policies to keep us on track, but where can we be ambitious? Where can we use some of our local resources? There's a company in the Valley that is working to replace, reconfigure vehicles and place batteries in them, big battery, maybe it's just called Big Battery. I toured their facility and saw what they have been creating and how they've been transforming, and really trying to innovate. They're right here in our own backyard. So as we think about opportunities to pilot, we have a lot of solutions here. We have a lot of innovation happening here, and we should be, taking advantage of that, because that's not only winning for our climate, but it's investing in good jobs. It's investing in our local businesses. It's bringing and attracting more innovation and saying to the regional economy that we want to bring more of this work here. And so I am not scared of the goals that we've set for ourselves. I use them as a motivator to say, we got a lot of work to do and no time to waste.
All right. I like this ambition. Why wait until 2045? Let's hit those goals sooner.
Yes. Clean Power Alliance, the state outlined a lot of goals for us as it related to clean energy provision. And the creation of Clean Power Alliance allowed us to hit those goals already. For our region. And so if we're able to do that, we're way ahead of schedule for the rest of the state. So I know that it's possible if we are thoughtful, if we are collaborative, if we work together through the region, if we share best practices and take the time to convene one another. A lot of times there are going to be some of these small spaces that they don't have the resources or the staffing or what have you to do this work on their own. But for that, they might be inclined to welcome this into their backyard. So we have a lot of opportunity to bring people into this work, and I'm excited about what can happen when we bring more people into it. And I know that you are too. That's why you're inspiring more people to come into this work. So thank you for that.
Well, let's just keep pushing. All right,
Yes.
Supervisor Horvath has to leave at 8:15, and it is 8:15. So
Okay.
everybody, please unmute and give her a giant round of applause.
Yay! Thank you so much.
Thank
you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for
you.
being
much.
here. Jaded.
Thank you.
Thank
And I
you.
know that Erin and Emily are on here from my office, and all of us want to continue to work with you. So please reach out to all of us. They have a lot more details about all of the things that we talked about. So if I didn't get into your, very wonky part of any one response, please reach out to us. We want to make sure you have all of the details to be engaged, and we'll call on you. I know I heard your questions loud and clear. How do we get engaged on making sure these plans come to life? We will call on you. We'll reach out and say, hey, this is on our agenda. We need you here to make sure that people know we're paying attention. So
We will be there for you.
Absolutely.
thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your time tonight.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
Thanks.